We're just waiting for the technical part since we're doing the meetings online as well. So that's the slight delay here. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And we always start by Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of our last planning and zoning meeting, which took place on September 7th, 2021. We'll entertain a motion to approve. We have
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Hearing none opposed, the item carries. The next item would be public comments. I'm not sure if we have any public comments for today.
We don't have any on Zoom, but we may have some in council chambers. Is there anyone here for public comments in council chambers?
This is aside from, there is an item on the agenda for variance. So it would be an item, public comments other than the variance request. Okay. No, yeah, if you're here for the variance, that's a separate item, so we'll deal with that next. Seeing that there are no residents that are going to be doing public comments today, then we move on to the next item, which is actually the quasi-judicial public hearings, and I would ask our city attorney to please go over that so that we're all aware, and those that are going to be speaking on this item will need to at one point raise their hand and do the oath. So, but I'll turn it over to Lorenzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we begin, if there's any board members that may have received ex parte communication in the last 10 days prior to this hearing, if you wish to disclose that, this would be the correct time. If not, we can just go down the row and you can say if you have or you haven't. Just say.
I have not.
I have not.
I have none.
I have not.
I have not.
Board, please be advised that the following items are on the board's agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. An opportunity for all persons wishing to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and the staff have made their presentation on each of the items. All testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If anyone that is here today does not wish to be cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the board to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. Persons representing organizations must present evidence of their authority to speak for the organization. Any person presenting documents to the board should provide the town clerk with a minimum of 10 copies. Further details of the quasi-judicial proceeding may be obtained from the clerk. And at this time, Mr. Chair, I think it would be appropriate for the clerk to swear in anyone who will be providing testimony.
Please stand up and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God?
I do.
Thank you.
Chair, the item that's before you is variance 2021-0556. The applicant is Mario Davila, and we have Ms. Susana Alonso that will be presenting for the town.
Okay, at this time, I'd ask the town to please make their presentation, and then we would ask the applicant to make their presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, good evening, Chairman and board members. The item before us is a variance for a pool, for the rear setback on a pool in a single-family home. The applicant is proposing to build a 14 by 36.5 foot swimming pool in the rear yard of his single-family home in an RU1 district. The submitted survey shows that the existing rear setback of the home at the point where the pool is wished to be constructed is 25.54 feet. On the other side of the property, the setback widens to 29.4 feet. These setbacks are consistent with the required minimum 25-foot setback in the RU1 residential district, where the minimum required setback is a 7.5 feet from both the rear and the sides. If the applicant was to respect this setback, the pool could potentially leave 18 feet to accommodate the pool, accounting with any distance from the main structure. The applicant is proposing the pool at 5 feet from the main residence and is requesting a variance for 5 feet 6 inches in order to increase the pool from 13 to 14 feet. Staff recommends denial as the application does not meet the criteria for practical difficulty, considering that the pool could very well be built at 13 feet instead of 14. And I'm going to allow the applicant to present his case.
You want to press a green button? It's got a little button on the side.
There's a green
There you
button.
go.
Okay. Now,
There you go.
good afternoon. My name is Mario Davila, my wife Gloria. And the reason that we applied for the variance is the house originally built from Mr. Timoteo Garcia. He already designed, the pool in the left side of the house. I mean, seeing the house in the direction of south, okay, the left side, which is have 29, feet, is enough to build the house. Excuse me, the pool. I don't know why and the reason. I never asked Mr. Garcia. He decided to build the deck in the left side, and then he never, built the pool. He got his only son, and he built a house for his son in the same area, and he built the pool for the grandsons and grandchilds, in the other house. And that's why, when we bought that, we bought that with the idea that we're going to build a pool. And then we found that. And I'm, as an architect, graduated in Costa Rica, and I'm working here in construction. I think, that the house, has the personality and the investment and the dimensions to allow that, a better pool. But destroy the deck is terrible. It's very costly, especially today with the materials and everything. And my wife and I decided to just move it to the right side. Then we found, that the 7.5, foot was a little short. And the situation put us, in problem, in trouble, because the right side, again, seeing to south, is a little extended. That's why we have 25.54. But it's dangerous, to build the pool nearby the house, and it will, enforce us to make a structure and costly. And we are in like in the catch-22, that build here, make narrow pool, or destroy the deck. And we decide, basically, we see that this is one of the options that we're allowed, if you help us, just to take 1 foot, from the side, and then, make a balance on the construction and the pool and the design. We ask all the neighbors, not all the neighbors, but some, we have a list of 9, and we asked them, if they allowed us to do that, and they signed, a letter to us, and they said, no, absolutely, that's not a problem. And basically that's where we are here today, see if we count with your support on that.
Okay, I have a question. Just so that I'm clear, because I'm looking at a survey where a diagram of your pool. How many feet are you anticipating doing it away from the house?
5 feet.
And then the pool you're requesting to do 14 feet.
14, yes, exactly.
And then, so wouldn't that give you almost 6.5 feet in the back? But the variance,
Yeah,
the way
we
it's
have-
worded, it says 5 and 5.
We have the 25.54, basically, from the survey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then we deduct, 5 feet plus 14 feet plus 6.3, something like that. That's what we will leave, instead of that 7.5. No, 6.54 instead of that 7.5.
Okay, so, but the way I,
You are correct that there's some discrepancies in the measurements. But you can, and that's why there's a discrepancy in some of the titles. But the actual number is, what he's requesting is a 1-foot variance, because otherwise, do you see what I'm saying? So you add up what the survey says is what it is. The actual drawing has the numbers wrong. The survey has it right.
the thing is, my understanding of our code is there's a difference. If it's 6.54 feet versus 7.5, then it's less than 12 inches of a variance. And there could have been an administrative
Correct,
approval?
if it met the criteria for practical difficulty, which it does not. In order to have an administrative variance, it has to go straight down the line with every point, you have to meet all 7. Because there's no leeway allowed to the administrative official to basically make up any room. So,
Okay.
right.
No, no, right.
And/or make a narrower pool, and/or make it closer to the home. So there's several ways that he could meet the code, because technically this backyard is perfectly standard for an IU1 district, and therefore, yes, no, it does not meet the practical difficulty required for an administrative variance. So yes, you are correct.
Okay. So the variance being requested right now is 6.54. That's what's in front of our.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And yes, there is a discrepancy between the survey and the drawing submitted.
So that was my question, because I thought it was a 5.5 foot. So basically what you're requesting is about a foot of a
Exactly.
variance.
Exactly.
That
And
was my only
through the
question.
chair, Suzanne, I guess if they would have met the practical difficulty, this would have been approved administratively?
Correct.
Okay.
My question is, my microphone's not working. My question is, it's not that much to demo the concrete. I'm a general contractor. You could put it on the other side. You wouldn't need any variance or anything. And you could do then whatever type of deck. Actually, you could do a better deck than what you have there now. Because demoing that would probably cost $1,500 to demo that slab.
Basically, what I checked, the design of the deck, which has been built with Mr. Garcia, according and matching, the design of the house, is not just, destroy that, it's just destroy completely the deck and redo that. And my cost, basically, on cost 6 months ago, today I don't know, because the prices are sky to the rocket, but we have like $26,000 just in decking. And that's basically what we got for redo the whole deck of the house. The house has a complete deck on the back of the house. You can see it on the survey,
$26,000, you said?
26.
How many square feet of deck do you have?
Well, actually, I don't have it here, but it's more than 200. It's a complete deck. Design. You can see the deck. On the shape, everything according with the design. That's what Mr. Garcia do that with a big slab and a water hooks for sink and the patio and a barbecue. He designed everything, but opposite. Instead of doing, in the west area, he just redesigned and put it in the east area. And that's why, redo all that, is a lot of money, Besides, the trash, every truck, we just contemplate, 3 trucks of 30 yards, okay, and each truck is $800, on trash, just concrete to just remove the deck, beside the cost of the new deck. It was a fortune,
Seems like a lot.
Excuse me?
I said it seems like a lot. Like,
Yes,
I think
it is.
because I just had one ripped out and put back in for $5 a square foot.
Well, I have a,
It included throwing away the concrete and everything.
well,
of-
I have
of the
a,
deck.
I have a roofing company,
Uh-huh.
okay, and a window company. We have GC, and we have roofing license. And what we pay today is unbelievable, unbelievable.
I'm a
Every-
GC. I'm a GC.
Excuse me?
I'm a GC. I'm a general contractor.
Yeah,
I'm
correct.
a general
Well,
contractor operating. I know the costs.
I don't want to, argue with you. I
No, no,
just
I'm
said,
not-
you know
it's
what
not
we
a-
pay. We pay
No, no,
for
it's not a
30
matter
years,
of arguing.
$800 per truck.
It seems like a lot.
Yes,
It just seems you're
it
saying
is.
that the
It's-
number you're giving me is not a number that I would use.
Well, when we start, the estimate of the pool, the first
No, the
estimate.
pool work is expensive.
Yeah, but when we start the estimate, the first estimate was $22,000. Actually, the pool cost, go to $50,000. We just cut all the decks and everything. We said impossible to build the decks. I mean, impossible.
Yeah.
And we just going to, our idea is build the pool, and just squeezing all and cut corners, from 22 to 30, 34, 35, and that's basically what we got without decks because it's impossible. And that destroy the old deck. It's just not affordable, I mean, it's,
Yes. Oh, okay.
Your mic is not working either? Wow.
We,
1 second, board member, please.
yeah,
we're
because
gonna
everything
get
needs to
your
be
microphone.
recorded.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I was asking, or what I wanted to know was, the present deck that you have, you wouldn't be using the same material to build the deck that you want to build now for the pool? So they're gonna be two separate materials? So in other words, well, my first question, I guess, is are they pavers, or is it concrete deck?
It's a slab.
It's a slab.
And
Oh,
a
you did say
special,
that.
existing, which is go all the perimeter of the house, and everything. We will need to remove everything because,
Okay.
we're not gonna match, the same tile.
So you're not planning on putting deck around the
No,
pool?
no,
So there's
no,
no-
we
no-
just,
no deck.
That's, what
Want
you're
to-
trying to do is maintain your existing deck
exactly,
and just do the pool?
exactly. Except just a little sidewalk, matching what we got in the other side, in the east side,
Okay, I'm good for now.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You said that this deck was built as part of kind of the extension of the home.
Exactly.
Okay, and I guess for clarity for us, this isn't something that's just located in your backyard. You said it ran through your perimeter?
Also on the perimeter,
Does it run through your
Sideward.
front house?
yes.
So.
No, not in the front house. I mean,
Okay.
in the side, in the east side of the house, back of the house, which is the south.
Okay.
And then the sidewalk all around is completely the same deck, and which is a slab.
Okay, so breaking that slab would essentially just kind of remove the continuity of the house?
Yes,
And is that why you want to put the pool there?
exactly.
And you're not adding any other pavers, it's just the pool?
Just the pool. Just the pool. Yeah, because we can just build the pool next to the existing deck, which is very solid, and that's what Mr. Garcia, designed that. The only problem was that he just swapped that, which I don't know why. I mean, like I said, at this point, we don't know. We don't know why.
Because the existing tile patio is consistent underneath your terrace, or no? Or that's a different floor?
The existing is a terrace, and the deck all around is existing tile with an excellent condition. I mean, the whole house is in excellent condition.
Testing,
Any other
testing.
questions to staff, or?
Why the extra feet? Why does it make a difference?
Well, we want to put, I mean, we have surgery in both, and one of the foots, and we have some therapy, and definitely, pool therapy will help us big time because, walking, I'm 66, by the way, anyway, and I have a heart attack 10 years ago, and I walk in, but at some time, some
Testing.
areas they're very hot, And that's why the
Testing.
pool and put a little machine to do exercise inside, is
Testing.
fantastic. But when you just, put a little machine for both of us and do exercise, then, you reduce that. You need to remove it, and you have to do this. And it's a little complicated, and then we have our grandchild, and that's why, we think when extra food, my daughter, built a pool in Miami Springs, and she got, first she got the design on 12, and it was so narrow. Then they went a little more, 14 point something, almost 15, and it's very family. I mean, it's very, very good size, for a family. We were not going to build, for instance, jacuzzis or anything like that. We just want the pool for us, for the grandchild, and a decent, balanced, design. It's like when you have a car, you have a beautiful BMW, and you put the little narrow tires. I mean, it look bad, and that's what basically it goes. It's unbalanced, and that's why, the option is put it to the left, destroy the deck, or put it to the right, make it narrow, and look weird, for the beautiful patio and beautiful deck,
The neighbors that you got the approval from, so you back up onto basically two different neighbors. Are they part of the ones that you inquired about?
Yes, we just present the letter. There are nine signatures. It's the neighbors on the side, east and west, and a neighbor on the south, which is the backyard. Basically, and all of them, told me, Mario, of course. Besides that, we have some other neighbors, but then, one of the neighbors, which is a contractor over there, told me, Mario, you only need, your next door neighbor. That's why I do not get more signatures. But all of them, told me, well, it's only 1 foot and it's beautiful. I mean, it's fantastic. And most of them, know the house because they know the period, owner.
So the 8465 Northwest 165th Terrace would be basically your neighbor to the back. And 8525, the Lopez family and the Chalas and Ross family are your neighbors directly to your back.
Correct. Mr. Luis,
Chalas and
Yes.
Nidia.
we have Nidia, Ross, and Luis.
They're your neighbors
Okay.
immediately to the back that would be
That's my
most affected by any
Correct.
encroachment, or not
In fact-
encroachment, but the closer you get the pool to it.
Correct.
I have one more question.
Yes, please.
The square area, let me see. The square area, yeah. The square area that you have on that deck, there seems to be something in there. Is that a barbecue that you have there, or?
We don't have a barbecue right there. It's just areas, He designed, he put it on the blueprint. The original blueprint have the barbecue.
I see like
the
a
wa-
table or something sitting in that area. Is that a table or a barbecue or something? Right here. Whoops. Right there in that area there. That's from the county.
Okay. This is our next door. I mean the backyard. Okay.
Yeah, the backyard. That's their deck.
Nothing else. Yeah. Nothing else.
That's not a barbecue.
The deck. No.
Just curious what was there. Yeah, there's something there, but.
We only have the beautiful deck. Which is
Oh, I can see it. I can see it.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Is there anything else that staff would want to include, or any other thing that the applicant would like to say regarding the item before we close?
I have here a letter from the applicant with several signatures from his neighbors, basically saying that they approve of the application and the request.
So that would mean that condition number 1 of the practical difficulty criteria is met. So that would be changed in the staff report.
Yes, sure.
We thought, you know, it's a big investment making the pool, and we thought if we could get 1 more foot, it would be great. If you don't allow it, we'll still go ahead with the pool, smaller, but it's more enjoyable if you have a little more space. That's all.
I understand.
If I might, to the chair,
Yes.
if the variance was not granted, would you build the pool anyway at the smaller size?
Yes.
And if I can, I recognize you. You presented roofing materials to us a few months ago.
No, years ago, yes, you approved our eco roof. I met the owner of the first high-income hurricane resistant roof in Lake County, and been approved by City of Miami Lakes. We roofed several houses here. One of the houses is the
Loch Lomond.
But it was a very innovative product, am I right?
Yes, it is.
Very innovative product that you,
well, in fact, the house is on Our Lady of the Lakes, the next road right in the corner of the Lions are. That's the first house we installed here. Then, we installed several houses. I mean, our roof it looks like a regular tile, but fast, category 5, high-income hurricane system, zero maintenance, and we start, roofing all over. And we have Miami Lakes neighbors very happy.
thank you.
And we are in the same category of the metal, looking like tile.
Any other questions? Okay, you may be seated. Is there anyone else from the audience or on the line that would like to speak as to this item? Thank you. Okay, so hearing no other resident or online or in person to speak, I'll close the public hearing. And at this time, we'll have a discussion amongst the board members and entertain any motions granting or denying the applicants.
Through the chair,
Yes.
looking at what he wants to do here, the main access is on the side where he wants to put the pool in. So it would be the easiest place for him to access the backyard because he has 12 feet there to bring equipment in and out. The 1 foot, in my opinion, is not that big a stretch. The neighbors are approving it. Yes, it would be better if he would put it in the other area, but he's got all that tile going all the way down the other side of the property. It would cost him a lot of money. So I would be in favor of this, so to let you know, I'd like to make a motion to approve it.
So it'd be a motion to approve. Now, the way we should word it is to approve, because the way the packet shows, it shows 5.6, which gives them 2 feet. I mean, I think we would probably like to restrict it to the 1 foot
For the 1 foot,
variance.
for the variance would be the 1 foot that
Is-
they actually need, according to the measurements.
Sorry, I'm looking through to make sure that I got the right language on the,
Well, we would be approving at the 14 feet, it's just that we'd be according to the survey, not the plans that was shown.
which is what I'm trying to make sure we're doing.
Because
Give me
the
one
way the request reads, a variance from section 131512 to allow a swimming pool with a minimum rear setback of 5'6", 5 feet 6 inches, where 7 feet, 7.5 feet are required. It looks to me from the 14 feet that they're, maybe it was when initially, I mean, typically pools are normally 15 feet, so maybe they already took out the 14, and that's why now it's only basically it's a rear setback of 6 feet. 0.54 of a foot is probably 6 inches, as closest to get to 6 inches. So I think if we say a minimum rear setback of 6 feet 6 inches, they would be able to do the pool that they're requesting.
According to the survey, he would end up with about 11 feet 6 inches that he could split up 5 feet towards the house and the rest towards the rest of the side of the yard,
Right.
according to the survey.
So just to understand this, the board would like to make a motion to approve for a 6'6" setback?
Right, which would give him still a 14-foot pool.
Okay,
Which
which
is
is
what
what
he
it adds up to.
Right.
Correct,
If you
yes.
add it up, according to the survey, he would have the 14-foot pool, and he would have the 5 feet up against the house, and he would have the 6 foot, 6 to
So the correct,
the fence,
so-
the edge of the property.
so the correct motion would be to allow a variance of 1 foot, which would be 6 feet 6 inches.
Right, right, from the property line. I mean, he may have a concrete fence there that's on the way, he'll have less to the pool, because if he has a concrete fence back there, it looks like he does. But from the property line, he would have the correct, yeah.
So
We would have
It
the
appears
correct
that the CVS well is on the other side of the property line.
Is it?
Yes, it's on the neighbor's side.
It's on the neighbors?
Yep.
Okay, so then he'll have more space.
I would second that motion.
So
Yeah,
we,
you're right.
we have a motion to allow the variance with a minimum of a 6 foot 6 inches, where 7.5 feet are required. There's been a second to that motion. We will open up for discussion on the motion.
Yep.
Personally, my position is that I would be voting in favor. I believe a 1 foot, with the neighbors agreeing to it, so you will have my vote in favor.
I make a motion to approve with the 6'6" rear setback.
Yeah, that was a motion that.
That was a motion.
That
then,
I said already.
I'll
made.
second.
Okay, so it's already been seconded by Miriam. Is there any other discussion on the item? So at this time, I'd like to call the vote.
Board Member Leoncio?
Yes.
Board Member Fernandez?
Yes.
Board Member Senra is absent. Board Member Yanes?
Yes.
Board Member De La Sera?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Matos?
Yes.
Chairman Julia?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. The next item on the agenda congratulations, are the ordinances. We have 2 ordinances to discuss. One is the short-term rentals that was before us already, and then the green building. I could read.
Chair, I don't know if maybe it's wise. I believe that Mr. Moritz is here to discuss B, which is green building. If the board is interested, maybe it would be wise to, so he could reopen the order of business in order to move the items around.
Okay, so we could do the green building first and then okay. So there.
I'll make a motion to change the order of items.
Okay,
I'll
there's a
second the
motion with a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none opposed, the order has been changed, and we will start with the green building. So that's an ordinance of the Town of Miami Lakes, Florida, deleting Chapter 4, Article 5 of the Town of Miami Lakes Code of Ordinances and creating Chapter 13, Article 7, Section 13-1704, titled Green Building Program, providing for inclusion into the code, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the town code, and providing for an effective date.
Susana Alonso for the Planning Department. This item, I realize that you guys have seen it before, So yes, it is deja vu. It is exactly the same item with some changes. When the discussion was held the last time, it was merely to move the existing regulations from Chapter 4 to Chapter 13, where they actually belong. What you have in front of you right now is a little bit more beefed up than what was presented in the past. I want to direct your attention to the paper copy that I have procured for you, because the item that was uploaded into the agenda was incorrect. We will be making this particular copy available to the public, whoever should ask for it. And I want to direct your note to the red areas that are marked in red, because those are the differences between now and what you saw last time. The most important parts of it are, we're removing, we're adding a provision about a definition for green roofs, because green roofs will be mandatory in some cases. And we're adding a few, remove some things that were found to be, extraneous and not necessary, as far as requesting funds to operate the program and things that just haven't happened in 10 years, so they're not gonna be happening. There is no funds to operate this kind of program, so there's no need to continue to have this in the code. So that language is being removed. And then we're adding some mandatory provisions as per your discussion during the last hearing. The board's discussion the last time you heard this item was that some things should be mandatory, and we should include some provisions that are required of all, or at least all the large buildings, and that's what you have in front of you right now. We're requiring that all new construction above 20,000 square feet, which is the bottom rank for where public hearings are required. So basically any building that requires a public hearing, whether it be commercial, 20,000 square feet, or residential with 20 or more units, have certain things installed in its place. And the requirements are that they provide a green roof over a minimum of 60% of the flat roof areas. If they're doing gable roofing, they don't have to provide the green roof, but if they are doing flat roof, that they be 60% of it. There's a 40% of the square footage left for like mechanical equipment and the such. We're also requiring that water conservation methods as appropriate, including high efficiency plumbing fixtures and use of non-potable water for irrigation and toilet flushing. We're also requiring rainwater capture and water reclamation systems for irrigation purposes. And we're also requiring that all projects requesting a parking variance and all parking lots with 60 spaces or more, which is the required parking for a 20,000 square foot building. So to stay in the same area. Whether new construction or repaving shall provide 50% of the parking spaces as permeable pavers. This is in the spirit of Mr. Moritz's item that went to the board for single-family homes a few months ago, but in May, we're now expanding it to the commercial properties with this ordinance, and that's why Mr. Moritz is here. And then we're removing some requirements for a LEED rating system to be maintained on file, because we don't want to be the gatekeepers of whether the LEED is up to date or not. That has to be certified by a professional, and so be it, right? It's unnecessary. So we're removing some other language that doesn't make any sense. And then as far as the incentives go, which is at the end of your handout on number 4, there's a few incentives that have been beefed up. Expedited site plan review, reduced mobility fees to be determined by the council as to the amount, and up to 10% additional FAR and or an additional story up to a maximum of 7 stories in order to accommodate a maximum 10,000 additional square feet or 10% additional units. This is a little bit of a carrot for LEED certified buildings to sort of offset a little bit of their cost in making the building a little more efficient. If Mr. Moritz would like to say anything.
Good evening, Chairman Julia, and Planning Board members. My name is Mauricio Costa. I stood before you now 3 months ago with my classmates Gabriela Vega, Lucia Bring, and Jocelyn Hernandez, presenting an ordinance regarding the incentivizing of permeable pavers for single-family homes. Today, I'm here to present a section of the Green Building Ordinance. That is Section 3D on page 11 of 12 of the packet that Ms. Alonso provided you. And I would like to remind the board of all of the benefits of permeable pavers as we have presented to you guys in the past. It really is a great system that has a lot of potential of decreasing flooding. And like we said, there was some potential in decreasing flooding when we did it with the single family units. But now that this is being expanded to parking spaces, there's a lot more potential to decrease flooding because there's a lot of more area of which the permeable paver systems can take in effect. So like Ms. Alonso stated, this would go in effect for any parking spaces, any parking lot that has more than 60 parking spaces, and with new construction or repaving. So I strongly suggest that this item is passed, and I thank you for listening to this. Any questions about this, about the permeable pavers?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you getting extra credit?
Just a commission, just as commission
I hope
from
so.
the Green Paper.
I hope so.
No, it's commendable what you're doing.
Thank you.
I do have a question, and it had to do with the wording of the incentive part, because this permeable parking pavers are under the mandatory provisions for new constructions. But incentives has any building designated as a green building. I'm not 100% sure if the fact that you have these mandatory provisions would make any of these. I don't think they would.
So the mandatory provisions are not what triggers the incentives. The incentives get triggered when the building undergoes the LEED certification process, which is a process that gets done by the LEED council. It's a separate, and they have to certify it. They have to bring in a LEED professional. It's a separate process. The mandatory requirements are for everybody, whether they be LEED certified or not. And if you just do the mandatory, you're just doing the minimum. You're not getting an incentive for those. The incentives are all for the buildings that go all out to LEED. I believe it's LEED Gold.
But when we did the permeable pavers, we created some incentives for people to do that
For the
allowed.
single-family homes, correct. So
So
we're
here there
treating
would
the
be no
commercial
incentive.
properties a little bit different in that
Here's
sense.
just basically you got to do it.
Yes, you gotta do it, yeah.
And there's no incentive, at least contemplated at this time.
Right, no incentive program for the permeable pavers at this time.
I had a few questions or comments about the statute. But just going on the incentives portion, it says shall be eligible. So any building designated as green shall be eligible for, and then there's and. So does that mean that anyone who does this shall, meaning requirement, it's mandatory, eligible for all of the above, or is it better to say may be eligible and then use an or instead of an and?
Again, please.
So when, under subsection 4 where it says incentives, it says any building designated, and then I'm just gonna jump, it says shall be eligible, so shall is mandatory, and then we kind of list all of them, and then F goes to and, so it makes it conjunctive, it's all of them together, as opposed to saying may, and then just put or, so it could be they may be eligible for one of these instead of mandatorily all of these.
Good point. I think that's something that can be, right, that's those little details that, are we happy that they're eligible for all of them, or do we want them to pick what their incentives are gonna be?
Personally, I think when you say you shall be eligible for all of these, they're gonna come in and say, hey, you told, this says I am automatically
Eligible
all of
for
the
all
above.
of these. It's a good point.
So I wouldn't put it like that. I would say may and or. That's right. That's on that one. And then the other point I had Just on that point also, I know that EFAR, I mean, I'm assuming it's the Federal Acquisitions Regulation, but should it be defined in the definition as well?
FAR is defined in the code already, is
Okay.
floor area ratio. And
Perfect.
it's basically the relationship between the area of the site and how much square footage you can build on it.
Okay, and then,
When you add FAR, you're basically adding how much square footage you can build on a particular site.
and then my last point is when we have administration, so under subsection 2, it says the program shall be administered by the administrative official or his designee who shall be responsible for, and then we have 4 things, so A, B, and C, that seems to give tremendous amount of broad discretion. And I don't know if it would be best to qualify it with, consistent with the lead, the program shall be administered by, to just kind of have, the administrator, what guidelines are they supposed to follow?
Consistent with the lead where? Say that again?
So almost put it right after administration, and then consistent with lead, the program shall be administered by the administrative official, just to put in there that, he or she have to follow some sort of guidelines as opposed to some arbitrary discretionary decision they have as to what,
Yes, however, the program, but when they speak about the program here, we're not talking about the lead certification. The lead certification is accomplished by a consultant that the applicant engages. When they speak about the program that is the same thing as the site plan approvals and the development processes, so it's part of that sort of processes that are already being carried out by the administrative official.
okay, but then,
So the regulations that the administrative official engages on are what is in the code, is the LDC, the Land Development Code.
okay. My personal, just when you separate this article into its own, kind of section, and it's all under this, and then you have the administration specific to this purpose, I think we need to somehow, just my 2 cents, put in there what guidelines that individual has to follow, because when you just say they're responsible for developing any appropriate or necessary application procedures, awarding incentives pursuant to the section, determining whether or not a building is eligible, it doesn't say what their guidelines are. It just seems to say this administrator is.
I agree.
I agree.
It's
Yeah.
overly broad, yes. Again,
It's broad and vague.
is broad and vague, which is the reason that this has been seldom enforced. This was located, like we're mentioning, this is the language that has been in the code since its inception in Chapter 4, and which is why it's getting revamped right now.
That's all. Thank you.
I have an item that
Very good
I'd
point.
like to bring up under number 3, it says mandatory provisions. If you go over to section B, it says water conservation methods are appropriate, including high-efficiency plumbing fixtures and use of non-potable water for irrigation and toilet flushing. The effluent that we're trying to get rid of by the sewage system is the toilet flushing. The regular sewage that we get rid of is really not that harmful, from taking showers, things like that. So the main culprit here is toilets. So we're going to allow non-potable water to be used for toilets. It won't be metered, so then they won't be charged. And the main thrust behind charging for our sewer system is charging for the toilets. So I think that the non-potable water for toilets would be bad, would be an incorrect thing for us to allow. Maybe for urinals, it could pass, but for excrement, it's not correct.
Right.
And I believe you had
Be here. And toilet flushing. Non-potable water, so non-potable water would be water that you get from rain, or you could get it from a well. And it doesn't get metered by the county in order to charge for doing the actual cleaning of the sewage, which is what you're putting in through toilets.
So I think we discussed that we're gonna remove that toilet component and we're gonna
It should be
substitute it with cooling towers.
Cooling
Am I
towers.
correct? And is there any other
Cooling
systems
tower-
that can use reclaimed
The
water?
non-potable, I think you
Yeah,
use it for
cooling towers
irrigation
is
and
one
that's
of
it.
the main systems that can be used, non-potable water. You can pull it from a well, or you can pull it from rainwater, but mostly from a well for a cooling tower.
So I will make it read for irrigation and cooling towers.
Yeah. And you will in the toilet flush. A lot of water gets used in cooling towers, and it just evaporates away, but it's being charged. With Cordis, I've had them put in a separate meter, and then they took away the sewage charge for the water, only charged for the water for Cordis.
Can you explain the green roof, the vegetated roofing system?
Green roofs are basically a layer of organic material and plants that are put on top of an existing flat roof. Usually you do asphalt. It needs to be a little sturdier than a regular roof, but then you put your layer of asphalt, and on top of the layer of asphalt, you put in a layer of dirt, and then you put in a layer, it's a little more complicated than that, I'm oversimplifying. There's some aggregate and some drainage issues that you need to add, and but you put in a layer of dirt, and then you plant some plant material on top. And it does a whole lot of stuff for the building. First, it reduces the cooling cost because it creates a fantastic layer of insulation for the space below. It also keeps it cooler because there's a little bit of moisture that is kept there that is also creating less temperature on the floors below. Also, it creates less of a warming effect in the area because is now reflecting heat from the roof, and so the temperature of the buildings around it also decrease. And obviously, it looks much better on the aerials. The aerials, when you have a lot of green roofs, looks like there is no buildings. The buildings basically disappear. So for all those reasons, green
But
roofs
the
are
cost has to
fantastic.
be
They add a
significant,
little
no?
bit of cost to the building.
little bit.
Up to the regular roof. There's a difference of about 20% of the cost of a regular roof.
Yeah, but then the maintenance of it.
And the maintenance actually extends the warranty of the roof somewhere between, usually you have to re-asphalt, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm always relying of Mr. De La Sierra for these kinds of details, but you usually have to re-roof an asphalt roof every 10 years or so.
Yep.
When you use a green roof, because it's protected from the sun, you can extend that to 20 and sometimes 30 years, depending on how much beat up it gets.
May I, through the chair, do we have any green roofs existing in the town of Miami Lakes?
Not in the town of Miami Lakes, but yes, in Miami-Dade County. They're starting to be pretty popular with people that are trying to do, again, the difficulty of all these things is that they do increase the initial cost of the building, which is where the incentives come in.
But in this case, we're not doing the incentive for the mandatory. This is
Right.
mandatory.
These are mandatory, correct.
And on the residential side, is there anything that's over 20 units, which is not that big? It's a sizable project, but it's not that big of a project. I mean, I guess the option is they don't have to do a flat roof.
That's only if they do
A flat
flat roof.
And how many buildings over 20,000 square feet?
Well, right now we have,
No, that we're gonna have a bunch.
right now we have two under construction that would have caught on this, and we have coming in another 3. So yeah, these happen, I mean, it depends on, but these are large budget.
When you
Projects.
when you define though remodel of, let's say, one of these big warehouses that has a flat roof, and you just say substantial remodel, if they're just remodeling inside because maybe there was, a person that had 5 different businesses and now somebody came over and they just knocked a bunch of walls inside, is that going to be considered
Substantial remodel always refers to 50% of the, it's something that is in the code. So it's whenever they have to meet all code requirements, and it's part of the building code. Substantial remodel refers to 50% of valuation price. Sorry, I was missing the right word.
Right, but what I'm thinking is when you're adding the green roof component, I'm thinking some of these older warehouses that we have, could they reach the threshold just because there's a different tenant coming in the door? And now you have to do a green roof on an old building that God knows what that means.
Potentially, yes.
That would depend on what's being done. So if you're putting in a clean room facility, then yes, it would break the threshold. But if you're just remodeling offices, no. It depends on whether you put a laboratory or what you bring in.
And is the town, is there a reason why we're not giving any kind of incentives to commercial buildings of 20,000 square feet? Or we're imposing certain things, but basically not?
Well, that's the intent of the framer of the item. He wanted some things to be mandatory, and these are the things that were found to be.
Obviously, if you feel as a board that there should be more of a carrot instead of a stick, that's
I mean, that would be my
that's fine.
personal opinion, but obviously I respect the rest of the board. And obviously, I think it's really important, the flushing, I think that's counterproductive to put the toilet flushing, because now that you're not gonna get any revenue for the sewage, which is the more costlier part of providing the water. It's the water treatment that really costs a lot of money, not really bringing in you the water. And the provisions that, Board Member Yanes mentioned about the shall and the may and the or are definitely significant. When it comes to town buildings, I see that if there's a building renovation that exceeds $200,000, so that doesn't mean, it could be, because before that, you put, if the new building is 5,000 square feet, it's a square footage threshold as to whether or not the city or the town has to abide by a.
Correct. The town has to build, this building is a LEED certified building, is LEED Gold. The town has been required to use LEED certified buildings since this ordinance was approved, and I believe that was back in 2012. So this building that we're sitting in is LEED Gold. Royal Oaks is LEED certified. So we've been following this for our own buildings for a while, and that's why we have not found that is so much more, right? That there is a percentage of cost involved, but it's not so much that it's not doable.
But then, when you do renovations exceeding $200,000, I mean, I don't know how many town buildings are not LEED certified.
The older ones, Mary Collins is not LEED certified because it's older. The older ones are not, in general.
West Park, I don't think is
Right, Mary Collins, right. The older
Because the
ones.
Roberto Alonso Community
Roberto
Center
Alonso is. This one is, and in
Youth Center?
the youth center is as well. I think in the Optimist Park, one of them is, and the other one isn't. So there's.
My concern was only with the $200,000 threshold, because unfortunately in today's world, $200,000 renovation is just about any building. It's not a 5,000 square foot building. So that would probably trigger any, it could be a 1,000 square foot building that the town would have to go to LEED certified, which,
Yes.
I mean, I'm looking at that. I just don't know quantifiable. The only building that I thought about was the Mary Collins one. I didn't think of any other building that wouldn't be LEED certified.
Yeah, Mary Collins is the only one that isn't in the list that we have set today.
Because that one could probably use $200,000 worth of renovations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Through the chair to Susanna, regarding the mobility fees, to be determined by,
The town council.
on a case-by-case basis? Case by case.
There would have to be a resolution at some point to indicate how that would happen, whether it's something, remember, the mobility fees are complex.
Fluid.
And they begin and there would be, there is already a credit for certain things, and any credits that we give to the mobility fee have to be directly related to the mobility fee itself. So we cannot give a credit on the mobility fee, for example, for a green roof, because it's not a transportation-related item. We can give them a credit for anything that has to do with things that increase or decrease the transit through the place. So that's why it's a little trickier, and it cannot be sort of thrown out easily. However, there is a value in giving a little bit of a percentage of a mobility fee credit for things that are related, directly related to,
Like an EV charging station.
you're right, EV charging stations is a natural one.
Going back to the items that now the administrator, the program shall be administered by the official or the designee. On, I guess, the new B, it would says awarding incentives pursuant to subsection 2E of this section. Where's 2E now? Because I would think, when I first read it, I thought it was the incentives that are now basically in section 4.
That would be section 4, yeah, that's a,
But you just mentioned, for example, the mobility fee, that's going to be based by the town, by the board.
say that
So
again?
is it the board or is it the administrator, the one that's going to determine the fee? The
Right,
incentives?
so the mobility fee is here, and is to be TBD, right, like to be determined. There's a lot of discussion that needs to go into how that would happen. That has not happened because it has not happened. At some point, there would have to be a resolution in order to determine how the mobility fee thing, the mobility portion of the incentives would work. The same way that we have a resolution that indicates how much the mobility fee is charged every year. So that it would be part of that process when we reevaluate the mobility fee on a regular basis. We would have to reevaluate the credits that are given for lead certification. And however, it is correct that there may be a mistype of misreference of where the incentives are.
But so the way it's worded then is that the administrative official or their designee is going to be the one that's going to be responsible for awarding the incentives.
Which is the way it works right now with the mobility fee. There's credits that get, right now is the way it happens with the mobility fee. If you have a mobility fee and there's some credits that are due to the person or to the project because they're putting in bigger sidewalks than they should, or they're putting in additional bike racks, or they're adding pedestrian facilities in certain places. There's credits for all those things, and that's something that is part of the administrative official's duties to grant. Remember that all these projects, by the nature of the request, because they are larger than 20,000 square feet, are by nature going to always require a council hearing. The administrative official would always be preparing a staff report where all these items are addressed and where any weight is going to be given, just like we prepare a staff report for variances. And all these items would go to a hearing. These are not administrative approvals, so there's a lot of eyes on the application, and they would go through a rigorous review process where the lead certifications get examined, where all these things get fleshed out before the hearing, and then there would be a developer information session, and there would be a town council hearing where all these items would be, and there would be recommendations and a development order. So the administrative official is sort of kind of like just preparing it for the council, and that's what all this wording goes to.
But going back to, like, I think what board member Jan has mentioned, it does seem to at least be worded. That may be practice, but it seems that the wording is the administrative official is the one that's going to basically say, you get this and you get that. Yeah, I understand you're explaining that in the normal course of the work, it'll be subject to council approval, but
I will
with all
read it
due
again.
respect to you.
I'll read it again with that in mind, and because you may be correct. You may be correct.
Possibly, if I may, if we could just say that the administrator determines the eligibility, but what the actual fee to grant or not would lie within the council, if that's the way it goes. But I do think it says he gets awarded it. He can
Because
award
it could go either both ways. It could be that the
Right.
administrative official at that time is just giving away the
Right.
house and the keys,
Exactly.
or the
Exactly.
administrative official is not giving anything at all and is driving the guy
That's
crazy
right.
and is not going to build because,
Yeah.
and he has no right to talk to anybody and
Yeah.
figure out what to do here.
And these are very valid concerns that come up every time that we're discussing things that have impact on developments. In a small town like ours, where the administrative official is basically a one-man show or a one-woman show in this particular times, yes, it is a lot of responsibility to be put into one person, and keeping that as keeping as much as much guidance in it as possible is always a good idea. So I agree. I'm going to look at it from that point of view, because that's I had not seen that little bit.
Yeah, because that little word "shall" for us is a little.
Shall is shall.
Shall is shall.
Shall, there's no way around it. That's it.
I don't know if there's additional comments, questions, or if we want to entertain a motion with some suggestions, I guess, a whole multitude of them. Okay, so I'm going to take a crack of what I think we've discussed. So I think, how do we word appropriately the revisiting of how the program shall be administered issue, with specifically, at least in my concern, with the issue of awarding incentives? I mean,
I think you can word it to state that the will of the board, if I'm hearing you right, maybe I'm not, is that in the places where shall is written, that the language should be either may, correct? And that the administrator has the ability to suggest, but that the final decisions on any of these decisions rest with the council. I think that that's generally what the sentiment, your sentiment is, but.
So if I may, just to sort of summarize, it seems to me like the suggestion of the board is that the language be revisited to make sure that the final decision of all rests with the council and not with the administrative official, because these are going to be items that are going to be heard by the council as quasi-judicial items. So did that make sense?
And I think the other point too, so I mean, I've heard three things. Second point was with regards to some of the language as far as lead certification, is that it's vague, and there should be a set forth criteria upon which this is granted.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
Not granted, but in other words, that the person is found to have met the standard of the ordinance.
Right. This is
correct?
essentially under subsection 2 in administration.
Okay.
I believe that what the point that we're trying to all make in a tortured way is that this is sort of transitioning from being a volunteer program into a little bit more of an incentive-based program, and therefore the language should change to be, the incentives should rest at the town council and not with the administrative official, where in the past it was just an administrative program and it did not need that additional layer of review, and now it does. So it's a very valid point.
and then the other items would be to basically just some of the, obviously in 2B, the typo is not subsection 2E, it's subsection 4, because that's where the incentives are. I think we also discussed in 3B, taking out the non-potable water for the toilet flushing. And I believe also the commentary of Board Member Yanes is extremely important to at least put it on the record that with respect to number 4, it should be not shall but may, and in 4F instead of and or and/or something like that. 'Cause they could, maybe somebody does qualify for all the incentives. So whatever that resolution, that's what I would present as a motion, whatever that,
I got it.
so that's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that. I'll
Okay,
second that.
Board Member Yanes is second. I guess, okay. I'm just gonna do a voice vote. Are those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none opposed, the motion carries. And it's, the second item is now the short-term rental. This is an ordinance of the Town of Miami Lakes, Florida, amending Chapter 13, Article 6 of the Town of Miami Lakes Code of Ordinance, creating Division 3, titled Short-Term Rentals, providing for inclusion into the code, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the town code, and providing for an effective date. And this is our second look also at this item.
And for this item, I wish to introduce my intern, Mr. John Breyer, who has prepared a wonderful presentation that was heard by the council at the short-term rental workshop, and is now going to sort of show it to you guys to introduce the item again. Again, this is an item that you have heard in the past as well. It is coming back to you again because the sponsor requested that some changes be made. Some of them based on your suggestions in the past. And here's Mr. John Breyer now, and with the presentation.
Hello. All right. Good evening, Council. Well, it's a tough act to follow, the last presentation, so take it easy on me, please. As Ms. Alonso mentioned, I know this is an issue that's come up before the board previously. We had a workshop on September 23rd. The revised ordinance that we're presenting to you today is based on all the public comments and the feedback we've received at all of these hearings relevant to this topic, and of course, most recently, the discussion of the council at the workshop. Apologies to anybody who attended or has seen the presentation from the workshop. I'm going to try to quickly run down this presentation, and it's more of just recontextualizing the issue and setting the stage. Of course, afterwards, we can get into the specifics of the ordinance itself, the changes that have been made, et cetera. So this presentation is going to be in 3 parts. We're going to have an introduction to the topic of short-term rentals. We felt this was important based on a lot of the public comments that we received, just to make sure we're all on the same page. It's also going to include a brief overview of the legal framework by our town attorney, Mr. Coviela. We did extensive research leading up to this workshop, and so I'm going to present just very quickly some of what we know about the effects of short-term rentals, both at the macro scale and also at the micro scale, and then going to wrap it up by discussing the topic of regulating short-term rentals, which is obviously the topic of this ordinance. So the 2 main points that we wanted to drive home in this introduction were, one is to be clear that vacation rentals, what this ordinance is aiming to regulate, there's 2 points here, and this is from the definition that's of vacation rental that's in the ordinance. Now, this is not something we made up. This reflects the language of the Florida statute, as well as this is the definition that's in pretty much all of these municipal ordinances across the country. So vacation rental specifically means a residential dwelling that's rented to guests for periods of less than 30 days, or that's advertised or held out to the public as a place that's regularly rented to guests. So, just to be clear for anyone in the public who's watching, if you want to rent your place, you're leaving for the summer, you're trying to rent your place for 3 months, this ordinance has this regulation does not apply to you whatsoever. All right. The other issue that we wanted to kind of drive home is that, there's many activities that are allowed in residences. You can cut your daughter's hair, you can make food. There's even businesses that you can run out of your house that involve pushing paper around, but it's already the case that there's regulations in place and activities that are prohibited in residential properties, right? You can't open a barber shop or a restaurant. These are activities that are already regulated, that there's already restrictions for. And so it's important to ask ourselves when we're looking at, we have a hotel or a hostel, if we have these residents or properties that are being listed on Airbnb that are participating in these short-term rentals, what functionally is the difference between these and those other ones? And that's probably a great place as any to have our town attorney discuss briefly the legal framework surrounding short-term rentals. Oh, you got your
All right, so this is our second go at doing this, but in the second go, we dug, we dove a little bit deeper into what can we do and what we can't do. And what we discovered is that for most part, we are somewhat preempted in what we can do. Now, the Florida Statute 509013 sets forth certain definitions that are important. And the first one is, what is a public lodging establishment? And it basically defines that as two types. You've got your transient public lodging establishments and your non-transient public lodging establishments. Non-public lodging establishments are those that kind of look like a lease, but are not. They're defined as a short-term rental. They're month to month, but they could be for up to, I believe, almost. They could be a little bit more than almost up to 6 calendar months. Is a short-term, is a non-transient public lodging. And transient is, you're coming and going, and you're almost using, it's your typical Airbnb. It's week to week, less than 30 days. 509.032 lists out that the division, it's a division of hotels, the state of Florida, that is responsible for carrying out this statute. And one of the things that's interesting is that Chapter 509 combines what are public lodging establishments and public food service establishments. And it states that it is the department's role to safeguard the public health, safety, and welfare. And the division is responsible for ascertaining what operator is licensed under this chapter and make sure that he doesn't engage in any misleading or unethical practices. One thing that is interesting is that the responsibility to inspect the premises is under the purview of the actual department. It's their responsibility to make sure that the place that is being rented out, the Airbnb, has the type of the sprinkler systems that are necessary, the fire, the emergency exits, that it is a place that is safe, and they are to conduct the inspections that are necessary under the chapter. Now, 509.032, and this is where the preemption comes, it states that local ordinances that were created before June 1st of 2011, and it says there under B, I'm going to try to read from here, a local law, ordinance, or regulation may not prohibit vacation rentals or regulate the duration or frequency of rental of vacation rentals. This paragraph does not apply to local law, ordinance, or regulation adopted before June 1st, 2011. Now, what does this mean? It means that to a large extent, the town cannot develop anything new or new law that prohibits certain things with regards to short-term rentals. However, that doesn't mean that we're completely preempted in what we can do as a municipality. What are things that we can do? Well, we know that these public lodging establishments have to be licensed and have to apply for licenses through the state. The town also has a responsibility and the ability to require these agencies, since they are businesses, to obtain a business tax receipt. One thing that is within our right as a municipality is to make sure that when we're requesting this business tax receipt, that we're receiving copies of these licenses, that we understand that they're being inspected on a regular basis, and ask them to provide us proof of the same. And there we go as far as the business tax receipts. If they don't provide us those business tax receipts, then we as a municipality have certain arms at our disposal. One of them being is if it's a non-homesteaded property, we can even go up to the point of foreclosing on that property and doing a taking. This is something that we're looking at with regards to certain properties right now that have accumulated code violations that are commercial in nature and have not come into compliance and are right now a nuisance to many of